Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars turn on. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. The stars turn on.
Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 21 of the Press Box, in association with the unit. It was a huge Louth Derby victory for Dundalk on Friday night, as first half goals from Yad Hakiki and Ryan O'Kane and a second half double from Darrell Horgan earned John Daly's side a 4-2 victory over Drogheda Utd that could have huge implications for who goes down this season. Unfortunately, the win was overshadowed by fighting on the pitch at full time. So on this week's show, we're going to discuss those scenes, what the implications might be for both clubs, and whether it has any bearing on potentially the repeat meeting in the FAI Cup this week in Weavers Park. So I suppose we'll go straight into the scenes afterwards, sadly. It's not a great topic to start, but I suppose you video that you've seen kind of all the highs and lows of it. But I suppose what were your thoughts and what do you think the potential implications could be?
Yeah, well, look, needless to say, it massively soured what was, a good night, I think. Like, look, obviously, if you're a Drogheda fan, you're not happy with the result, but I didn't think it was a bad game if you're a neutral. 6 goals, decent enough atmosphere throughout. Yeah, look, you just can't do that. And unfortunately, it's become a bit of the Normandies. Like, this is three years in a row now. So you go back to, I think it was a game you were at in the then named Head in the Game Park, March 2022, where very similar incident where after the game, the Drogheda fans crossed the pitch in their own ground to engage with fighting, and not to the same levels in terms of numbers involved, but certainly not a first. And then you go back to last September when Dundalk won 3-1 in Oriel. They crashed through barriers behind Carrick Road end that night, and a Dundalk fan was hospitalised. So it, 3 times in as many seasons, the one fixture, to have that many flare-ups, it's far too many. And it's got to the stage now, and because we're playing them in the cup this week, like, and this isn't something I've maybe necessarily seen in the commentary, but like, for example, a young girl needed medical attention the other night because she was struck by something thrown into the crowd. Now, thankfully, to the best of my knowledge, she's okay. But all it takes is that to hit her in the wrong place, hit her eye, hit her temple, whatever. And, that was probably the saddest part about the other night for me, that it started out with this like really poignant sort of, minute silence to Zara Murphy, and a complete tragedy of a girl who played local football for Termon Feck and Celtic, passing away on a football pitch at 13 years of age, and sort of heart-wrenching stuff that would, whether you have kids or whether you don't have kids, is all sorts of wrong. And then it ends on that sort of note, and potentially someone else getting seriously hurt. Because look, again, from the moments I've seen, and thankfully there's no massive serious injuries to the best of my knowledge, but it just takes a thump in the wrong place, a kick in the wrong place, whatever. And there was thumps and kicks thrown into people on the ground and stuff like that, just indefensible. It's become all to the norm. And look, I know, I'm not going to say Dundalk don't have lessons to learn from this. I think they do. Look, the stewarding probably needs to be a bit better, although in defence, they are volunteers. This isn't, maybe Premier League or, Aviva Stadium stuff, but it does need to be better. But at the same time, you have to have sympathy when 60 odd people or 40 people or whatever the number was come charging at you. I don't agree with Joanna Byrne's assessment on local radio that it was instigated by Dundalk fans. Like, yes, no one's denying there was a guy on the pitch with a flag, but that doesn't justify what subsequently emerged. And like I say, it's become all to the norm. And I think, look, every club probably has an element that, you nearly wish that they weren't part of your fan base or whatever. But like, I do note there was bans dished out by Drogheda tonight, and that's to be welcome. But hopefully it sort of solves the issue, because like, and look, you're nearly mocked for mentioning it, but like, the trash, the toilets in the ground before that, that's not supported. That's thugs. I'm sorry. People might laugh at the Oriel Park toilets or the away end or whatever. I've actually never been in that block of toilets in question, but I've been in the other one, kind of close to the YDC, and they're very similar. I can't imagine they're very different, and they're quite adequate, certainly in terms of League of Ireland standards. When urinals are pulled off the walls, that's, you're not there for the right reasons. And we all, there should be passion to a derby. There should be a bit of edge to a derby. There should be rivalry. We all want the local bragging rights and all that stuff. But I don't think, like, had that game been reversed the other night and Drogheda won 4-2, I don't think it massively changes the outcome. I think some people come, and it is the minority, shall I say, but I do think some do come looking for that sort of incident, and you can but hope that it's not repeated, just because it only takes one or two idiots to say want revenge, or want to hammer the point home, or whatever stance you want to take. But that's all it takes, is one or two idiots to kick off all this. And there was far too many idiots the other night. I'm not condoning the Dundalk fans coming onto the pitch as well, but when you're charged at like that, you've probably two or three options. One is run, one is stand there and maybe take a hit, or one is to sort of go on the attack. And I'm not condoning what they done, but for me, this was fully instigated by the Drogheda fans coming on the pitch. Did no right being there. Did know that. Listen, we're all adults. We all know, no matter what game we go to at any level, whether you go over to a Premier League game, League of Ireland game, you're not allowed to encroach on the pitch. And the very fact they did that, I mean, I don't care what a flag being waved is not justification for what went on. If what happened in a public space at the weekend, like if you went into any sort of, be it restaurant, pub in the town centre of Dundalk or Drogheda, and started tearing urinals off the wall, you'd be up for criminal damage. If you started just thumping lads in the middle of the square or West Street or whatever, you'd be arrested. I know there was arrests the other night, but minimal compared to the events that was occurring. And it's very sad, because we're at a time where the league's grown in popularity, and that's a right turn off for me. And I know that's how you feel. I'll let you come in. Sorry, I'm on a bit of a tangent on it there, but it is massively off-putting. And like, you couldn't blame, just final word for me for the moment, but you couldn't blame anyone for maybe not going on Friday for fear of, do I get struck? Do I get caught in the middle of something, or whatever else? And particularly if it's kids, or, I don't want to be sexist about it, but females or whatever. Like, I'm sure you wouldn't take your partner to that game if there was a threat of her getting hurt or whatever.
Yeah. Ultimately, it was a disgrace. And it is happening all too often. And I think ultimately, both clubs suffer. So regardless of who started this one, both clubs, in reference through the last few years, have both started or instigated different things. So I don't like on Friday, massively instigated by the Drogheda fans. Absolutely, it's thuggery. It has no place in society, and what it doesn't do is it doesn't help Dundalk and the League of Ireland grow. And when I say Dundalk, it doesn't help Dundalk or Drogheda. Dundalk are currently struggling to get attendances in. Their attendance is one of the lower in the leagues. So is Drogheda. Now, Drogheda is possibly through to having lack of space for more people, but it's not going to grow like this. I was talking to many people over the weekend about it, and a lot of people did feel the same. That a lot of people aren't going up to Drogheda for this, and of course, there's people that kind of like that side of it, and there is a nice to have a bit of tension, but that just crosses the line. Um, Nobody wins. You know how, in my opinion, as I've said many a time, I think we grow our attendances and the people and the fan base by women and children, actually, having more schools involved and moms wanting to come down and stuff, and having certain things in place, family stands and stuff like that. But if I'm a mom, dad with 2, 3 kids wanting to come down, I am not going anywhere near Oriel Park. I will look at other sports. There's no getting away from it. If you wanted to go to, although there does, to be fair, some fights in the GAA, but predominantly GAA matches will be grand. Predominantly rugby matches are grand, and it's just a nicer experience, a safer experience. And ultimately, in my opinion, the FAI have to come down hard on both clubs. And I think Dundalk are very unfortunate because we it was instigated, in my opinion, by Drogheda fans. But again, maybe you need more police force involved if this is the case. That's maybe you do need more stewards. But also in the case, as you said, talking to somebody who's involved in stewarding, and let's say some are paid, to be fair, and some do it voluntarily. Even if you're paid whatever you're paid, why would I be jumping in the way of some lunatic running with whatever? Come, like, you don't. That shouldn't be a part of anybody's job within this league. And I have huge fears. Like, Oriel Park isn't the nicest, most attractive place anyway. And as we were talking about the hits and stuff that all these videos are getting and stuff like that, but it's true. We can't hide it, and it can't be something that's like overshadowed. We can't like really overdo it and all that. It's there, and it's continually there. And I have to say, most people that were watching, people are sick of it now. People are just sick. Like, who wants to come anymore? And I know, as I said, loads of people aren't going to go on Friday because of that. There's going to be people that will, and I get that, but it's not going to grow attendances. It's not going to grow the brand of the club, grow the brand of the league. And I think the FAI need to really, really come down harsh on this. Like, I don't know what that is, and I don't know what the solution is, whether it is extra policing, but like, I hate that we have to fucking talk that we need extra polices at this game. We're all soccer people, and we're always defending soccer, but I can't defend that. You can't defend this anymore. I'm sick to my teeth of defending this sort of stuff. And nobody wants to go and watch that anymore. And I'm telling you, this is going to be a real negative for probably more for Drogheda. So this is very little, in my opinion, even though there was fights from Dundalk fans. I don't necessarily think they started or jumped in that sense, but it's just not a good look. And I think that's what has to be sorted. So whether it's each club, whether it's like something has to be done, as in all these people just get banned. I've no idea, but like, as I said, this has taken the League of Ireland absolutely nowhere, and especially the club that we all supposedly support. And we all have to just sit here and say, "Oh, this is grand. Sure, this is soccer." Well, maybe if it wasn't just soccer, or it wasn't just accepted, that we can have 4 or 5 thousand people on a Friday night having a fun time, and rather than having to worry about, maybe, as you said, a young girl getting hit or whatever happened in that scenario, having to ever think about that. That should never, ever be the case. And the game that we all love and try promoting all is indefensible right now. And for me personally, I am sick. I'm just so sick of it. Like, I can't, I don't even want to discuss it anymore. I'm going nowhere near Weavers Park on Friday because I have no heed now. I'll watch it on the telly, and I'm telling you, a lot more people will because of that. So something, whether it's the FAI or the clubs, or the league in general, somebody has, because this is just like, what else? So what happens next? As you said, somebody potentially dies or something, and it's not funny, and it's not like.
Well, it's not an identical situation, but like, just a guy that probably got a lot of publicity in the last few years, Sean Cox, a man who obviously worked in Dundalk, went to a Liverpool Roma game, and completely unprovoked attack, but like, his life was changed forever. And that's,
That's
like,
what's next.
and it just takes, like, look, I could get hit. There's boxers, that like doing this at a professional trained level, and you could take thousands of hits in your career, and just one in the wrong place at the wrong time or whatever, and it absolutely changes your life. And people will probably laugh at that, but that's the reality. And for what? What's to be gained from it? It's not like it's football at the end of the day. Yes, we all want to win, and yes, it's important. And yes, look, there needs to be banter, there needs to be a bit of slagging, there needs to
Yeah,
be bragging
absolutely.
rights. That's sport at any level. Like, I mean, you mentioned GA there. Like, do you not think when I'm picking two clubs at random here, when the Brides are playing the Mocktas, that the team from Knockbridge wants to get the team, the better of the team from Loud Village, their neighbours, and like, out the road? Of course they do. That's all part and parcel of sport. It's why, even forget about the League of Ireland a second, but the biggest fixtures in world sport are, the Merseyside Derby, the Manchester Derby, the Old Firm, all the major games, and not always when the two teams are on top. There was a time when, say, Rangers were well down the division. Like the Old Firm was still big. Man City weren't always winning Premier League titles, but the Manchester Derby was still big. Everton haven't challenged for a league title in decades, but the Merseyside Derby is still big. And yes, it means more when, we discussed it last week. This Louth Derby probably meant more than any in for most fans' lifetimes, because as you said in the intro, and we will talk about that, but like it could have huge implications on who finishes bottom and who doesn't. So yes, it's in a weird way, and you'd prefer it to be the other way, where it's top of the table or whatever. But it was kind of one of the nice elements about looking forward to Friday's game, was that this actually mattered. This wasn't, for many years, like, I'm going back to like the noughties, like Drogheda were the team on the, ascendancy, challenge for leagues, winning a league, challenge for cups, winning a cup. And whenever they played Dundalk, it was largely one-sided. And then that reversed during the Stephen Kenny era, where you'll always get the odd freak result or draw here or whatever. But by and large, it didn't really matter. It didn't impact either team hugely in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, you can't condone that. And look, it remains to be seen. I suppose we should discuss the potential fallout you mentioned there, like what's happening. I know the two clubs met with the Gardaí and the FAI on Monday evening, and as it stands, we're recording this Tuesday night. It's about what, quarter to 11 now or so. As it stands, the game's going ahead on Friday as normal, with tickets on sale, etc. But the disciplinary committee, the independent committee that the FAI have appointed, are the ones who will dish out the punishment on this. They're only meeting tomorrow, I believe, Wednesday, and that will determine what it'll be. Now that could stretch to anything. Like, I don't know if that's stadium bans, future game bans, almost certainly going to be financial penalties, which, to be honest, I don't think either club can afford. And it's simply waste of money. Like, ironically, and I'm not saying this looking for plaudits or whatever, but like, I was part of a committee on the pitch at half time on Friday night, handing over a check to the club for the golf classic that we helped organise recently. Like, is that just gone now? I know that's in theory for the academy, but let's be honest, it's all the one pot. Is that money just gone now to pay a fine to the FAI for whatever, or certainly a large portion of it? And that's disappointing, because I know and Drogheda is no different, by the way. I know there's plans to, bring in finances there and raise, more money through the community and more interest through the community. Like, it would put people off getting involved in such matters, because I know there is hopes to do sort of follow-up events, not necessarily golf, but later this year, and maybe keep some of the people who were involved in the golf on board, add to it as necessary. But you couldn't blame anyone on that committee for turning around and saying, well, why should I bother just to pay fines? And maybe that's not the right attitude to have, but as I say, this is
Yeah,
becoming,
but the line has to be drawn somewhere. So, like, and
yeah,
by the way, if that is the case on some people's behalf, on any committee or any fundraising and stuff, I completely agree with them. That's what I'm saying. At some stage, people have to go, who fucking cares? Like, this is just going to continue. Nobody's ever doing anything about it. Now, again, this is all pre potential fines and bans
Yeah,
and
and
what the club.
again, so the likes of Blackstone Motors, who obviously have an interest in both clubs and are, really good backers of both clubs. They were the match sponsors the other day. But who wants to be a match sponsor of that now and have your name associated with incidents like that? It makes life harder for the people on the ground trying day to day to look. It's not easy running the League of Ireland club. It's not easy to get revenue in. We've all seen our bills rise in recent years, energy bills, etc. Even for the club are a lot, more expensive. And it's just making life harder, and it's not going to help attendances, as you rightfully said, Oriel. Well, the facts are the two Louth clubs have the lowest attendances in the league, and it's not going to help boost that. We're probably, to be fair to Drogheda, I think, they're limited obviously by capacity. That Weaver Park roughly 2,000, so they're by and large selling it out most weeks or thereabouts. But they're limited in terms of really growing the club because of where they are. Oriel, it can hold a bit more, but it's not really appealing to go to. So but that's not going to encourage anyone to go. It's not going to encourage people to bring their children, their anyone sort of, even elderly, because what do you do? It's you maybe can't run away if you're, if the limbs won't allow it or whatever. So it's definitely a sad scenario. And as I say, enough needs to be. This is, as I say, 3 years in a row. There's been, to varying degrees of, I think there's no doubt Fridays was the worst of the three, but it's just been let go. I'm not seeing. I know Drogheda released statements and I'd say there'd be bans, but these people that are, because it is the minority, let's be honest. There's a lot of really good Dundalk fans, really good Drogheda fans, people who love their club, people who would never think of, doing anything to damage or hurt their club. And it is the minority spoiling it for the rest. And that includes I fans texted me all weekend, basically kind of worried that, people who travel everywhere, if we were playing in Cork tomorrow, they're there. If they're playing in Donegal, they're there. And they're nearly worried that they won't be able to go see their team this Friday in a big game, let's be honest, because of what happened on Friday. And I don't know if that's going to happen. You need a crystal ball for that. But if that does happen, or it happens subsequently, because I don't know if I made the point to someone, and I'm not saying this is the case, but hypothetically, had a player been sent off for whatever reason on Friday night, they wouldn't have actually missed the cup game. They would have missed, in our case, the Bows game next time round in the league, because it's competition specific. So, do we, in theory, not get to go to Daleyman Park, as supporters because of what happened to Drogheda? I'm not sure of their fixtures off the top of my head, but these are all things to be seen. And again, it is the small minority. But why would you? And I made the point, I'm going back a couple of seasons ago in the pod at this stage, why are these people still being accommodated in grounds? Who's lighting flares, who's, acting up. There's enough video footage, photographs or whatever from the other night. Rid these people of your ground, because they're not supporters, they're not helping you, and they're only tarnishing you in every way imaginable. Because like I say, listen, I'm sure all the time, be it Nita Whelan, Peter Halpin, whatever, they're looking to bring revenue in, similar people at Drogheda. And imagine them walking around to businesses this week looking for even a match sponsor for the next home game, and it's a couple of weeks away at this stage. But it's not an easy, it's a harder sell now. It's a much harder sell. Again, John Daly's still in the market. We've questions later on about strikers and that. the probability is if we get a striker, it's more than likely coming from outside the league. I don't think that's rocket science to anyone. But again, if their first impression if the first thing they see when they Google Dundalk is this, does it put them off signing for you? You know, again, you need a crystal ball for some of those things, but like, I don't know what the fines would be. We'll have to discuss that when that happens or whatever the penalties are. But it's hard to really argue with them, and yet neither club can afford that in more ways than the financial, but certainly in the financial as well. It's just sad to see, and as I say, my fear is, does it put, like, this should be the Louth Derby should be, when the fixtures come out usually around Christmas, the Louth Derby should be one of the fixtures you look at first. You know, traditional, who we playing opening night, who we playing last day, and Louth Derby's probably one of the first you look to see. You know, it's usually been around, the first one's usually been around, give or take, St. Patrick's Day or Easter in recent years. So you're kind of looking, where is it and when is it, you know? And it might be just looked at now for a different reason, because unless this stops. And I've seen criticism of the ground, and listen, we all know Oriel's not. But at the end of the day, like, and I was watching Shamrock Rovers this evening, just before we came in their Champions League game, which is, you know, the highest standard in terms of match prep and what's required to just host a game and all that. And ultimately, look, the stewarding does need addressing. There's no doubt, and you can't escape that. But if 40, 50, 60, whatever the number was, people run at, let's be honest, a handful of staff around the ground, at any ground in the world, they're getting on. They're getting on. But it's a bit like, you know, why do you not drive down Clonbrassil Street at 100 mile an hour? Because you know you're not meant to. You know, it's and people need to sort of just keep their sort of decorum. Like, you wouldn't do what you did in the middle of West Street, in the middle of Park Street. So why are they doing it in United Park or Oriel Park? It's a sad, and you're 100% right. It's a sad part about, like, and I'm a football fan above any other sport, but it is a sad indictment of the game and the game in this country, because we used to sort of laugh at the English game when it had that in it, but it's on our doorstep now, and it's potentially people we know, neighbours, friends, whatever, that could be hurt by this, and people may laugh at me for that, but as I say, it only takes one wrong blow for someone to be seriously hurt, or someone to take it even to the extreme. Like, what's the next? Like, if this happens again, does someone bring weapons with them? I don't know. You know, because, like, again, and this comes back to stewarding. You know, people aren't meant to bring flares into ground, but yes, it seems to happen every week. You know, there was, I jokingly said, like, Drogheda lit more flares before the game than they had points this season. You know, like, so if you can get those things in, why can't you get a knife, a knuckle duster, or whatever? And that might be taking it another level, but that's the fear now, because as I say, it only takes one idiot to say, "Oh, I want revenge," or "I'm going to get them," or whatever. Yeah, and it you risk as well new people being attracted by this, because there's enough lunatics.
You don't risk
out
anything
there.
now. There's nothing attractive about this. So, and
No,
that's
well, there's people who would be attracted by violence, and they would have no connection to Dundalk or Drogheda, but they would see it as an opportunity to go and get involved in something like that. And that's the fear, because this has, whether we like it or not, reached a wider audience than any 4-2 win in a local derby in the League of Ireland during a Euros would ever have got.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part of it.
Yeah. But anyway, we're gonna discuss Friday's game at some stage, but before we do, we are gonna hear from our sponsor, the Unit.
Today's episode is powered by the Unit, experts in building innovative products for the betting, iGaming, and sports industries. They're the brains behind building innovative products tailored for those who love the game as much as we do. From software that powers up the betting world to platforms that enhance how we engage with our favourite sports, the Unit is leading the charge. The Unit, a winning team that reminds me of the Kenny era Dundalk in their consistency and results. Proud sponsors of the Press Box podcast. Learn more at theunit.dev.
Right. Well, we did actually get a few questions in as well. About so in fairness, not everything is actually, or even none of them is actually about the incident, so which is good. So Jack McGauley said, please discuss how much goals do you think Yad Hikiki will put past the Zombies on Friday? I'm saying a hat-trick. Well, again, we will discuss the game, but I think he was a deserving man of the match and brought a lot of different kind of attributes to the Dundalk squad. So if he does get a hat trick, it'll be well deserved. Davey English said Brian Ainscott's last Twitter post, and is there any interview to come from him? Yeah, somebody sent that. Is it just like Brian's like, oh, I'm off Twitter or something like that? So I've no idea, to be honest. Maybe you know
I
more.
presume I haven't asked Brian about that or anything now, but it was sent to me. But I presume that's U.S. election based or something. Just the madness of like, yeah, like it was a mad few days in many ways, and obviously things happening with former presidents and presidential candidates being assassination attempts and everything. So I don't know. I don't think that's anything to do with Dundalk, to be completely honest. In relation to an interview, he did actually reach out to me this week. And we're looking at getting something. We're hopeful of it being this week, but it probably will be next. But I'll keep you updated on that if and when it happens. So and I like it. It was nice of him to reach out. I didn't go chasing him, so I'll take that as a positive.
And then Simon Canning said, any news on the striker front, investors and injury updates? So I know you did a piece anyway today about Ave Dervin potentially coming in. So, and to be honest, of all the guys coming in, now, again, we are going to talk about a lot of the guys that came in actually, in my opinion, keeper, centre back, a Kiki guy, like lads did very well. I was very impressed. But one of the things that I've always been looking for us to sign is genuinely lads that have been involved in the league and stuff. And I think the Dervin signing will be a really, really positive sign. And so to be fair to John Daly, and again, I'm still just so done with fucking everything about after all the fighting and stuff like that. But he's signing well, and his team performed well on Friday, and that's the thing that we should be talking about. But anyway, any more news on investors, strikers, injury updates?
Yeah, well, just to go back to Dervin, I think that's a done deal. Not again, as we speak tonight, Tuesday night, it's not actually announced by the club yet. It may be by the time you listen to this, but I do believe it's in the bag. And like that, yeah, it's a signing I'm sort of excited by, because I think he gives you sort of energy and a bit of bite. He you don't see these players week in, week out, but what I can go off in the last three matches where Galway played Dundalk, going back to the infamous Cup game over there last season, the game in Oriel start this season, and again, actually John Daly's first game in charge, he was very, very good, kind of playing a sort of right wing role. Scored actually a very good goal against us in Oriel back in February. But yeah, I think he's kind of what you want when you're in a bit of a dogfight, which is what we're in. Just that sort of Rottweiler type that gives you a lot of energy. Maybe treads the line at times a little bit, in terms of staying on the pitch or not. But I think it's he's turning 25 this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, Sunday. So, still a young player, but a lot of experience, over 200 games under his belt in this league. He's up to speed in terms of having played for Galway this season. And I think you can never be sure of any sign of being a sure thing, but I think he's a good addition. On the striker front, club's still working on that. It's not easy. I think it's something maybe everyone's looking for. We've seen in recent days, like Sligo brought in a player on loan from Cardiff today. I think Bowes had Alex Grieve. So it's something everyone's sort of looking for, and you may need to utilize maybe the loan market. I'm sure that wouldn't be the number one preference, but if it gets you someone to bang in the goals, so be it. It's kind of wait and see on that front. Investors, I don't have an update on that, but again, hoping to speak to Brian soon, and needless to say, it'll be something I'll have to ask him. Injury updates. I think Andy Boyle isn't too far away whether he makes Friday or not. Obviously, Paul Doyle is a doubt now. He limped off early on in against Drogheda on Friday. I think it was a slight hamstring problem he had, so you'd imagine he's not going to feature this week. Jamie Gullen obviously made his injury return. Norman Garbutt, I think, was a player most people were sort of looking to potentially see it from the start on Friday. Didn't even make the squad. He had a tight hamstring, so I don't think it's anything too serious. Just decided not to risk him. So again, I'd imagine he has a chance for this weekend. But I haven't asked for an update at this stage on how any of these things are. That's my brief overview, and I apologize if I'm missing anyone. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone there that's out injured.
Anyway, the positive, I suppose we're probably half an hour in or something, and we haven't even referenced like genuinely an amazing victory. 4 goals. Funny enough, kind of at the start, to be fair, guys like O'Kane and Horgan, I was referencing to you being like, geez, these lads really haven't, got going, and they really could do it something. And, both of them kind of kick on and early goal, O'Kane kind of doubling it. And like, I think our keeper did well as well. I think he made 2 top saves, and that was really important. I think he took things down, and he was a really good addition for us as well. But scoring 4 goals is really good. Yeah, we conceded 2, but like I have to say, just for me, guys like even McGill coming on, he looked a different play. Like I have to say, it was the best I've seen Dundalk play in a long time, and they kept going for things. And maybe this is now the daily influence and stuff like that. So, yeah, again, if we put a gun to my head, I still think we'll probably come ninth. I know we were talking about kind of Bows only being 5 points off us. I know there's 2 games in hand, and they're not really doing much, if we're being honest. But I think even if they win one game, even, it's a fair bit. Even though we are playing them next, so again, it can be massive. But however, on the footballing side, a win, 4 goals for me, new players gelling in well. Really happy with that.
Yeah, like it was one of those nights where a lot went right. I think you forget the 2 goals maybe that was conceded, but we'd only scored 4 in Oriel all season up until that point, and we doubled that. I think, I said to John Daly afterwards, you probably couldn't have picked your goal scorers better, in that you're sort of 3 players off the front, all sort of contributed goals. And we'd spoke previously about like Daryl Horgan needing to add more. He certainly has it in the locker to add more. I actually had to look it up today. Like, it's his first double since 2019. He got a 2 for Hibs against Hearts and in the Edinburgh Derby. So a Kiki, that's actually the first goal of his career. I know it was a Jack asking earlier. He thinks he's going to score a hat trick, and I hope he's right for what it's worth. But big moment for him, and on your home debut to do that. I agree with you touched on it briefly earlier. Like, very 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 impressed by him, and he probably gives us something a little different. And O'Kane was involved in that first one as well, with the shot that subsequently spilled out to Robbie Benson. And he'd missed the chance the previous week up in Talan. One thing I will say about Daly, he just seems to have given the forward players in particular a little bit more confidence than they perhaps had, maybe earlier in the season. And that's huge, because, the likes of O'Kane, Horgan, etc., they're all now going into the Derby sort of buzzing now again for the Cup this week. And there was a couple of nice little, probably gets lost in the, with the 4-2 and with the talk of the aftermath, but like little things like first assist of the season for Benson, first assist of the season for Kenny, first assist of the season for Mahon, all nice sort of things to get, because like you think of the run maybe Mahon had for the, Horgan's fourth, or well, his second, Dundalk's fourth, the pace on the break, like we think back to pre-season, I think everyone was sort of very excited by Robbie Matten, and it just didn't happen to him for one reason or another. He missed a good few weeks through injury, but I mean, I'd be surprised if Mahon say started on Friday, just because probably hasn't the minutes allocated, and why would you break up that front three behind the striker based on what they contributed last Friday? But all of a sudden, no one's going to want to defend against that sort of pace and directness, late in the game. And the squad does look a little bit more sturdy now, in terms of like you've genuine options on the bench, and as I mentioned, Gullen getting back and getting minutes under the belt as well, and you add Dervin into that perhaps, and you still have Andy Boyle to come back,
The
Dara
defense
Keane
was
to
very
come
good as
back.
well. Defense was very good, and like the young Kyo as well.
Yeah, like, well, like, Goddard came
really,
in and like again looked solid enough. I don't think you could massively fault him for. He nearly got to the penalty at the end for what it was worth. Not that it really mattered at that stage. I think Pike looked decent when he came in. Scott McGill, you mentioned, didn't look out of place, because Paul Doyle, like, to be fair to Paul, he's upped it in recent weeks, and has done the business, and you're thinking when he goes off, but like all of a sudden you've different options now. Like, we had Ostenbrink on you sub the other night. You've, as I say, you've Dervin coming in, you've Keane. I think he's still a couple of weeks away yet, but he was back running in Tala, for example, which is a plus. Um, so you've real sort of options in there, presuming you can keep everyone fit. Nice little cameo by Luke Mulligan off the bench, 16 years of age. I think that makes him the third youngest player to ever play for us in a league game. So a nice moment for him. And again, it just gives everyone a lift to see a young, like, and John Daly did highlight it, that it's unfortunate that instead of talking maybe about the likes of Luke coming on, he was talking about fighting in the aftermath. But it's one of those things that gives everyone a lift around the squad. It gives, not just him, but the other underage players to say, look, there's a chance for me here, because again, Sean Keogh, it's, I think that was only his third or fourth appearance, but like he's growing in stature and confidence with every week. And, is a left back on the cards now? I don't know. It's the truth. I suspect he's maybe changed his mind, because obviously Pike can play there as well. So,
where is the bold Walker these days?
he was there.
Jeez.
He was
Fully
there,
fit?
just not well, I presume so. Yeah, just not involved. Um, but yeah, look, and look, you touched on it, like that. The bit Bows there, like Bows I think we're 4 points off Bows now, and we play them next Daily Mount. They do have those two games in hand, but they're against Rovers and Shells, so they're not on paper anyway easy matches by any stretch of the imagination. And it's funny, because say we do well, Dervin, I do think will come in. That'll be new signing number 8, is it, of the window? And say you get a striker, and that would be 9. When you factor in the likes of maybe Kyo in your team, who maybe wasn't at the start of the season, and even maybe Kenny, just as someone again who wasn't in your team, like John Daly could probably, I'm not saying he will, but he could probably pick a team on Friday or Friday week that weren't involved with Dundalk, when you go back to the start of the year. And as much as, again, Bo's brought in Dawson Devoy as well this week, and like, again, on paper, a very good signing. They're struggling at the moment, and they are the team above us. So why can't we go after them? Like, I actually had to look it up the other day, and I'm not saying it's because he's not the manager, but like Stephen O'Donnell's record this season is 16 matches, 9 points, 1 win. You know, when you factor in his time with Dundalk and Bows. So, like, that's not in any way great form. And, you know, there's a bit of daylight now where we can't completely take our eye off them, but like you've put 5 points between ourselves and Drogheda, so you can start looking up a little bit now. That you're not in that sort of limbo situation where on any given Friday you lose and they win, and you're back bottom again. You know, that for at least 1 week that's not the case. So yeah, that Bows game will be very, very interesting because they've like Rovers again, great result in Europe this evening. They've them in the cup now this weekend, and like, Rovers going into that buzzing. If Rovers knock them out and then Dundalk beat them, even though he's not in there that long, Alan Reynolds will come under severe, severe pressure. And listen, I'm not condoning managers being under pressure or being sacked or anything like that at all. But yeah, put it up to them and see what they're made of, you know, because you know, probably, you know, I thought they were lucky enough to beat us in Dalymount earlier in the year. They were our first win of the season in Oriel, so you definitely won't fear them. Definitely won't fear them. That doesn't mean they don't go out and beat us, but there does seem to be a bit of belief coming in this squad, and albeit we need to do better than beat the team intent, but the fact we were a threat, we were scoring goals, we were sort of more free flowing. It's not perfect yet. It probably never will be perfect. I don't think there's such thing as perfect, but you're starting to be a bit more positive now. And look, we probably look. It's the same opponent, so it's a different one to talk about. It'll be a different sort of game. On Friday, Weavers Park's a difficult place to go. Needless to say.
But again, if you beat them, like as I
you're
said, with all
buzzing
the Premier Division ties, we're like,
well,
do you know
look,
what I mean?
one thing's for certain. 3 Premier Division teams are going out of the cup this weekend, and so you know either Bows or Rovers are out, and either Pats and Derry's out. So you're talking either the holders or the previous year's winners. So, you know, one like you're looking for a bit of luck and draws, and you're probably looking for a home draw and stuff like that. But you can begin to believe, and again, it's very hard to analyse Dundalk at the moment because the changes have been so vast in that, you know, I made the point, I think, was it after the Shamrock Rovers game. I think there was only 3 survivors in the Rovers game a couple of weeks ago compared to the opening day of the season when we went there. And like one of them was Archie Davies, who since left. So, you know, it's basically Horgan and Benson, you know, so it's been a huge, huge turnaround of players. Some have made, like, look, you couldn't not be impressed by Kiki the other night. I mentioned the others looked like them be good starts, but let's see how they are over sort of an extended period. And in many ways, we'd love to go on a cup run, let's be honest. But it's not the be all and end all this weekend either. I think, look, our priority this season is not the FAI Cup as much as you'd love to do it. And you'd love to, like, we haven't gone out of the first round at this stage since 2010, you know, so we've a very good record in the opening round and at least getting to a quarter final, a semi final, whatever. But it's, you know, would you take a cup run or would you take staying up? I know what I choose. But in that respect, it's a chance to maybe, you know, some of these players probably do need minutes in a weird way. And yeah, let's see. It'll be an interesting game Friday. And if you take off all the external stuff hanging over it, I think it's a very intriguing one.
Right, but before we do go, I will let you bring everybody our underage roundup, and as always, it's in association with Jerry McNamee Consultants.
Yeah, so on Saturday, the men's under-20s drew 2-2 away to Galway United, but there was less joy for the women's under-17s who lost 3-1 to the same opponents. The under-15s also celebrated a Louth Derby win on Saturday with a 3-1 win over Drogheda, with 2 goals from Hugh Martin, either side of a Shea Savage goal, seeing Shane Grimes' side come from behind to secure the 3 points. On Sunday, the women's under-19s drew 2-2 away to DLR Waves, with Chloe Ebezim and Kate Drum getting the goals. Unfortunately, the men's under-17s lost 2-1 away to Athlone Town. This Saturday, the men's under-15s host Sligo Rovers at Oriel Park at 2 p.m, while on Sunday, the men's under-14s are at home to Longford Town at 1:30 p.m, with the men's under-17s hosting Finn Harps at 5. The women's under-19s are also in action on Sunday. They travel to face Finn Harps at 3. And just a final word on that cup game, just to remind people, that game obviously has to be decided on the night, so there will be extra time and penalties if required. So hopefully not. But
before we go, we'll also wish our former player Greg Sloggett well at Hartlepool. We all kind of wished he'd come back, but sadly has got his move in England. But we will leave it there, and that is that from us on the Press Box this week. Again, we want to thank our main sponsors, the unit, and our associate sponsors, Player Fit, Jerry McNamee Consultants, and Malone Financial Services. And again, if you listen on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe to the channel as well. So it is Cup Week this week, and hopefully it's the start of a good journey, and I won't have any major incidents this week. So we'll chat to you next week.
Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars turn on.